So, does anybody have any questions or anything to share?
No, no questions. Thank you for the chart, by the way, for the two charts actually.
Yeah, there are many more charts on Sri Jyoti Star which I can draw, but I think for the moment we'll do that. And also, I think I need to draw the chart of, but it's actually more of an exercise for you to figure out whether it is 9:30 Sagittarius Lagna or it is Capricorn.
Yeah, but unfortunately, I don't know how to work that with the second one, but I will have to look into that. I noticed that so that I could actually work that out. But okay, thank you. Um,
So do you think you're more Capricorn Lagna?
yes, sure. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. We will because if it is does Capricorn, if it is Capricorn Lagna, then by the rules of the Navamsh, you've got the nodes in the Navamsh Lagna. So I think we discussed this before. So maybe did you have a mother have a difficult delivery on the?
She might have had, yes, I'm not sure, but very likely she did.
Okay. Okay. So so let's begin. So today we are going to do a little bit about curses. Now curses is a huge topic, and the Vedic tradition I follow, curses are like kind of extremely important, because that is where bulk of everybody's work and in terms of like clients will come. Because let's face it, when everybody is very happy with how things are going, and it's as per going according to their wishes and their desires, most people then are uninclined to come to a Jyotishi. Really, it is only when people are deeply unhappy and they are in deep search, either spiritually or in terms of like whether it's finances or their family life or their love life or various other things. And that is when the curses and certain placements with malefics will come into play. And Parashara has given like huge amount of, I mean, the chapter is phenomenal. There are both the volumes, there is at least two massive chapters, and they are very very detailed. At least when we were doing mantra shastra, there is reams and reams of the curses. And so I'm not going to go through, I'm going to introduce you the subject and how with that you can then build further, because the principles are fairly straightforward. So we will take up uh, take up that. So now the thing with curses is, it's to the Western mind, it sounds like, oh my God, curses, like what era are we living in? But the thing with curses is, it has been in Sanskrit it is called shapa. And it has been sort of in times long Vedic, even since Vedic times, curses by the rishis, by the devatas, it's been a very common feature. Now often curses are kind of given from one person or one devata or a rishi to another, because somehow they've gone through, it's irked them what the other person did, and so they've kind of annihilated something. And so in a fit of rage, full emotion, they have sort of constellated the higher powers and their own mantra power, or their vaka shakti, to be able to say that this is, may you have so and so, and may you suffer, or whatever the suffering is in form of curse. And that sort of comes to pass. And so that means they have already done the person who imparts the curse have done quite a bit of sadhana themselves to be able to have that kind of spiritual, to give the curse. But sometimes it is also, you don't need to be, be on a very high spiritual level to give a curse, because sometimes, sometimes women who have been very deeply tormented through a huge abuse, whether it's body harm and body abuse to a deep emotional harm, they have also, cursed in a fit of rage. And we all know, hath hell no fury as a woman scorned. And so this is a very important factor you have to consider, that curses is not just sort of like prehistoric times or like really old kind of thing. It's actually everywhere. And the fact that we are born, then we have to kind of go through, in terms of the karma, go through these curses. It's inevitable. And at some point everybody has some mild curse or the other, because we all have some kind of malefic planet somewhere in our chart aspecting something. So in a way, something or the other is always under a little bit of an affliction, just by the presence of malefics. So the rishi, people trembled at the name of Rishi Durvasa. Now he's a very famous rishi. As you can see, he's kind of, his eyes are wide and he's about to stare, and she's lost in thought. This is Shakuntala, and Shakuntala was deeply lost in thought of her beloved husband Dushyant. And so she literally ignores him while he's passing by, and in a fit of rage, that how dare you ignore me and not give me the hospitality that is, that is due for a rishi who comes in. um, he gives her he curses her, saying, your husband will never remember you even upon seeing you. And so that did come to pass. And then it had to be sort of amended, because for various, she went through an stage of appeasement, and she said, please alter the curse. And so he also gave her a little bit of a tip that, hey, if you were to produce a ring, then Dushyant will remember you. So it goes on and forth. And she was probably not the only one who was cursed. He has cursed many. The great epic, even Ramayana, came into existence because of Narad Muni's curse on Vishnu, denying him marital happiness and conjugal bliss. So Vishnu had to then take a birth as Lord Rama, as an avatar, to fulfill Narada's curse. So you see, it is not just about the great rishis and the devtas, or ordinary mortals that have to go through. Even they, Lord Vishnu himself, had to undergo a curse of Narad Muni. And then Gautama also, another rishi, Gautama cursed his wife Ahalya, which froze her into a stone for centuries, until the divine feet of Lord Rama relieved her from her misery. So you see, there is many, the whole of Vedic literature in the Puranas are rife with stories and mythological sort of depictions of people who have been completely destroyed, lifetimes destroyed just by the power of the person who had cursed them. And then we have the Yadu dynasty of Krishna's, which got destroyed because of Gandhari's curse. So you see, these are all, I would encourage you to read the Bhagavad Gita, as well as the Ramayana, because it is extremely rich in a lot of these depictions, and it'll teach you a lot of philosophical truths about the whole nature of curses. So now Daksha Prajapati was a great king, and he basically is supposed to be one of the creators of Lord Brahma. And he's portrayed as often as an obese man. You can see his belly and all that, and his main aim is to produce creature of all kinds. So he's kind of works like Daksha Prajapati is literally like a sort of like works for Lord Brahma in terms of the creation process of mankind. And it is said that Lord Brahma is created Daksha from his right thumb, and Daksh Prajapati was also the father-in-law of Lord Shiva. And that's why Sati passed away. His daughter Sati basically, was the first wife of Lord Shiva. And again, there was this curse because Daksha didn't like Lord Shiva too much. He thought he's not fit enough for his daughter because he had braided hair and he sat on a Mount Kailash meditating. So he didn't think much of him. And so he didn't want to have him around along with Sati for the great, where he honored loads and loads of rishis and munis, and all the Adityas came for his big ceremonies. And he didn't invite his own daughter and his son-in-law, Lord Shiva. So again, there was lots and lots of curses involved, and finally Shiva came, and then he cursed the Aditya, like the Aditya for, the Bhaga Aditya, for example, that he will lose his eyesight, because Bhaga Aditya was one of the presiding deities for the great homam, the great fire ceremony that was happening at the big ceremony where Daksha performed, and where Lord Shiva and his wife Sati were not involved or not invited. So eventually, I think Lord Shiva did turn up, and he did. In a fit of a fit of anger, he cursed Bhaga Aditya, that your eyes will have a problem. But of course, eventually, peace was restored, and things were, eventually fine. But still, there are times when people have to go through some of the curses. So now one of the curses, big curses of the Muni, Daksha cursed him. You wear the dress of a saintly person, but in reality you are a fraud by showing my innocent sons. Remember that Daksha is a king. He's very materialistic. You can see in this visual that Lord Daksha is basically a huge devotee of Lord Vishnu, and he has as he has been entrusted in the creation process on the behalf of Lord Brahma, so he is forever creating sons and their offsprings and their grandchildren, and so in terms of material well-being and all of that kingdom and all that, so he's very much steeped into that. And Narad Muni is like the great traveling rishi. He hates anything. He's into renunciation, he's into getting people moksha, because remember, Narada is nothing but epitomizes Ketu, the south node of the moon. And the Ketu, as we all know, is the moksha karaka, right? So basically, Ketu will annihilate everything which is sort of too material. If you're too steeped in material, and you're not detached enough, it will go and destroy it. So that is what the Narada's reason the Etra is, to be able to get people detached and show them the path of renunciation. So that's why Daksha kept complaining that stay away from my family and my sons, my innocent sons, and showing them the path of renunciation. You have proved yourself to be shameless and devoid of compassion, and you have done me a great injustice. And so he carries on complaining about Narada, that hey Narada, what have you done by performance of the sacrifice, the rishis, the execution of brahmacharya and their father, by begetting children, and thus you have obstructed their progress towards good fortune in this world and the next. So basically, Narad influenced some of his sons that take the path of brahmacharya, which is the Mars way, and sort of renounce and don't be interested in women and marriage and all of that. And that really irked Daksha, as we know that he's completely steeped in the material realm and progenies and progenies and the lineages and stuff like that. And so, because you have committed violence against others while claiming to be an associate of Lord Vishnu, you're defaming the supreme personality of Godhead. How dare you pose as one of the personal associates of Supreme Lord while at the same time performing abominable activities? Are you not ashamed? The actual devotees of the Lord are very kind to the conditioned souls and are eager to benefit them. Although you wear the dress of a devotee, now you have to remember Narad Muni is a great devotee of Lord Vishnu, and he plays a lot of pranks on people. And his whole major reason for playing pranks is through humor, and through those lessons, he teaches people detachment, how to detach from the material realm, and that is his sole purpose. So King Daksha is really enraged that Narada is interfering in his family life, and his creation process. And then he goes on about how, you create enmity with people who are not inimical towards you. You break ties between family members and friends. So basically, he's saying, he's challenging that you cannot do that, because my sons need their friends, their families, their, their extended, they are attached to all of them, their extended families. And so there is a huge lesson in this. But Narada knows that, the path to moksha, or a final liberation, is not through being completely attached to it, but making a movement, or making a sort of like, being aware that this is a very ethereal and temporary, and so we have to move towards moksha. So travel lightly, even if there is attachment, accept it, but through awareness over time, you can lessen the attachments. And that is what his purpose was. And those whose minds are changed due to being influenced by others do not become as renounced as those who have learned from personal experience. Although I live a household life along with wife, children, I follow Vedic injunctions. So this is all what Daksha is telling Narad, that how dare you come now again to me and now misguide my innocent sons. I cannot tolerate, I've tolerated this once, but since you have done it again and again, you may. So in turn, he curses Narad, saying, you may be able to travel all over the universe, but I curse you to have no residence anywhere. So thus we see that, the whole concept of Ketu, hence in the fourth house, is that is how it's like a derivation of that. Because Ketu, the south node of the moon, is very closely linked with Narad Muni, and the whole, the ethos of what Narad is trying to teach us. And so because of this curse, Ketu is literally has no home, because he is like the classic bhikshu. He's a classic sort of mendicant who travels from place to place. He's like the the yogi who has no home. He has to travel lightly and move on. His only home is his heart, where his spiritual journey will lead him to moksha. That's the only home he's aware of. So hence, when Ketu's in the fourth house, it becomes increasingly difficult for people who have that placement. So, and hence that's how the curse of Narada came about. Now you also have to remember, Narada has amazing powers. He can be literally travel all the worlds within seconds. In a blink of an eye, he can be there, and you may it's you may well laugh at this. It sounds a little bit, far-fetched, but it is not, because the whole ethos of Ketu hence is that um, people who have a very strong Ketu, the south node of the moon signature, they are a little bit headless. So hence they work very well with intuition. They are very much in tune with higher levels of intuition, So you have to remember this link between Narad Muni and Ketu, and this whole thing about intuition. And they are literally headless. There is no logic to the way they think. it's literally they are, they feel like doing something and they are deeply in tune with their intuition, but not always. And of course they do make mistakes as well. That's another manifestation of Ketu. Yeah. So now abhisha literally is the meaning of sharper. That is the word. It derived from sharper is derived from abhishapa, which is nothing but in Sanskrit it means a curse, an imprecation, a serious charge, accusation. And again, there are many, many definitions here: slander, false charges, calumny. So all of these are comes under the word curse, which is sharper. Now, it is a root cause for denial, sufferings, and calamities in this lifetime, and they invariably coming from some source. And often the source is either a devta, a rishi, or others like Brahmins, or from past lifetimes where you have irked somebody, father, uncles, brothers, sisters, even friends to an extent, mother. So again, each of these have signification. So if the moon is in under a curse or an heavy affliction, then it's probably coming from mother. Similarly, the father and the son, so on and so forth. Okay. So again, this is an injury and hurt. That is exactly what the abhishap or sharp means, and that is how one feels. Like one feels injured within and really deeply hurt. To the point where some people cannot function, and that is depends on how the gravity of the curse that is in operation. And often these curse comes about with um, through the dasha periods and the planetary periods, or sometimes even by transit, or sometimes by both. And it shows itself. But invariably, everything, there is no such thing as, oh, I have a curse but it will never happen. No, it will happen. It will happen. The fact that it is in your chart, at some point it will rear its head. It depends on at what time, and everything has its own place and things like that. So the effects, this is from chapter Parashara, Hora Shastra's chapter 83, effects of curses in previous birth. Maitreya says, "O vulnerable sage, you have acquainted me with effects experienced by men and women in number of ways. According to the Shastras, the soul of a person does not rest in peace after his death if he is not blessed with a son." Now, this is nothing to do with, oh, that, oh, you have to have a son. And it's kind of a lot more larger by implication. The concept behind it is that once you have a son, then he carries forward the lineage. And not just that, he also takes son, the pitri rin. The pitri rin is nothing but, translated from Sanskrit, it means the deaths from the father or the father's lineage. And that is the sole reason why people have children, and because it takes away some of the curse, some of the debt that you're meant to pay. Yeah. So is everybody clear on this? Any
Yes.
questions so
No.
far?
No.
Okay.
So now I just wanted to know,
Yes, yes.
the word son, is that literal or can that apply to sons and daughters?
See, the thing is, it can apply to both. Okay. So that's why I said, don't take it too literally. But
Okay.
having there is a certain a sort of it's kind of like a little bit of a mixed bag, really. I mean, rather have three daughters or two daughters or one daughter who is good, and who's kind of dutiful and kind of caring, and who can manage herself, than a son perhaps who's completely dysfunctional. So there are many, many layers to it. So I would not, take this thing, hang on, sorry, take this part very literally, that if he's not blessed with a son. But there is some truth to this, because remember, it is the son who takes continues the lineage, right? So for example, earlier I said the whole of the dynasty of Krishna got wiped out because of the curse. Krishna did have a son, Samba, and Samba basically also had a lot of problems. He was also eventually cursed, and he got what do you call, he had this massive skin disease, leprosy, and he was like completely destroyed, and he had to really do deep penance to Surya. And that's how he wrote the Samba Puran, because that's how he said that I have to heal myself through the power and the energy of the sun. So hence that came about. But you see, that didn't help, because Krishna was already fairly cursed, because and so his lineage got wiped out. So essentially what the Shastras are telling us is that if you have no curse, and if you have the right fortune, then you will have the right sons who will take your lineage forward. And that's essentially what we are kind of they're trying to tell us, right? If all things being well, and if there are no curses, then you will be blessed with a son, and things, your lineage will go flourish, and things like that. Now, there is nothing, what's the word, I would not attach too much of like, hey, women's lib, like why not a daughter and all. We don't want to kind of taint that, because I'm aware of it. But the thing is, it's how it is. Yeah. Does that answer your question? Hello, guys. Nirmala, does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Yeah. So coming back, hang on one, let's move forward. Okay, so now we come that effects of curses in previous birth. What sin does a person commit to remain without a son, and what are the remedial measures to be adopted by him to get a son? Kindly enlighten me about this. Then Maharshi Parashara replied, I will now tell you whatever Lord Shiva told Goddess Parvati in this respect. um Again, oh gosh, this is a repetition. So what causes destruction of children, and what are the remedial measures? So Lord Shiva answers, O Devi, you have asked a very relevant question. Now I will tell you the yogas for loss of children and the requisite remedial measures. So we first have to identify whether what are the curses, where there are curses. Now, please bear in mind, this is a really heavy topic, okay? This is not an easy one, because even when I studied this, it went on for months and months, and this was so tough a topic. And there are remedies, but also bear in mind, sometimes there are natural remedies that you may have a parivartana or an exchange, and then things may sort itself out. Okay, so don't jump to a conclusion that, oh, it will never happen, or because this is not just about having a son. This is also a wider like a problem. It's like a wider thing. So even if you don't have a son, you may be teaching and you may have students, they will pose the same problem. Or if you have, let's say, a real yuddha going on, or a war going on in your fifth house, then also you may have land up with similar issues. You may not have a son, you may not have children, or you may have children, but they may be fighting all the time, and they may take on the colors of whatever you have in the fifth house, which can be afflicted. So please, my request to you is that do not start thinking, oh, this is the worst thing. And the main aim is to first identify the problems, And if there is a way out after that, will it happen naturally, or do we have to do some kind of remedial measures? And Parashara even gives that. So this is a quite an advanced topic, but I'm literally introducing you to the topic. That's really what it is. So Lord Shiva continues saying, if Jupiter, the Lord of Lagna, and the Lord of the fifth are all devoid of strength. Now, when we talk of strength, we haven't done this because strength is for advanced classes. So, for example, Jupiter may be like in the sixth house or the eighth house, or it may be in debility, and it may have very low Shadbala points, very low points on every from every angle. So that would classify that Jupiter is devoid of strength. Then the same will happen if Sun, Mars, Rahu, and Shani or Saturn endowed with strength be in the fifth house, and the significator for children, namely Jupiter, and the Lord of the fifth, etc., be benefit of strength. So if you have malefics which are very strong in the fifth house, and they are like super strong, they have high Shadbala points, high Ashtaka Varga, and they be in the fifth, and then you have the Karaka of children, which is Jupiter, as well as the Lord of the fifth, maybe very ill placed and really badly um, afflicted. Then also you may suffer in terms of your regards a son. Now, it doesn't mean you may not have a son. There are instances where they still have a son, and we will be seeing examples as we go along. Okay, but first, oops, hang on. Yeah, but first let's identify. So this is called the Anapatya Yoga. That is this whole combination of where childlessness arising out of the afflictions of the fifth house of the fifth lord. There will be no male issue due to the curse of a serpent if at birth Rahu is in the fifth, aspected by Mars. The lord of the fifth is associated with Rahu, and Moon is in the fifth and is aspected by Saturn. The significator for children, Jupiter, is associated with Rahu. The Lord of the fifth is devoid of strength, and the Lord of Lagna is with Mars. So there are many, many such combinations. Like I said, many, many of them. Okay. So, for example, there may be a Pap Kartari. So you may not have Rahu in the fifth, but you may have just Jupiter in its own sign in the fifth house, but it may be in a Pap Kartari that is flanked by two malefics either side. Then also it will be um, a curse situation. Or it may be that it may just not be flanked with malefics, but it may have Rahu with Jupiter, or aspected by Saturn. So two malefics in the fifth house or the fifth lord is sufficient to have a sort of like a problematic curse for the fifth house. Now remember one thing, that even if the children may not take on the curse directly, there may be something like they may I don't know, if they may not probably live that long, or even if they do live, then maybe you may have issues to do with wherever the fifth lord goes. And that Karaka of that fifth house, which is Jupiter, maybe sort of placed in so the person so the Charakarakas represented by Jupiter may be a problem. Maybe the Jupiter is your Matrikaraka, and so as a mother, or your mother lineage may have had issues to do with childbirth and things like that. So again, we have to see what the we have to analyze it in great depth before we really make an conclusion that, oh my god, it's never going to happen. Or even if it does happen, then I'm going to be like suffering and I can't do anything. Maybe you're a professor in a university and then you have some problems with the students, so that can also be another manifestation if your the above is valid, because fifth house is not just about children, it's also about your creativity, It is also about your students are like your children. So it's the similar ethos. Yeah. Okay. So the significance of a children is associated with Mars. Lagna is occupied by Rahu, and the Lord of the fifth is in the sixth, eighth, or 12th. Mercury, as the Lord of fifth, being in the Navamsha of Mars, is associated with Mars, and Lagna is occupied by Rahu and Gulika. Gulika is like Shani. So, we haven't done the Upagrahas, the extra, the Upagrahas and all. That's again like, for next time, the course we will announce, and then, those are Aprakash and that is other grahas of the other planets are very important. They act like very powerful, they're, I would say they're like little points, asteroids kind of thing, so or rather, they, in terms of their energy levels, they are similar. The fifth is Aries or Scorpio. The lord of the fifth is associated with Rahu or Mercury. The fifth is occupied by Sun, Saturn, Mars, Rahu, and Mercury, and Jupiter. And the laws of the fifth and Lagna are devoid of strength. So there are many, many combinations. Okay. The Parashara, if you see the text, there are two chapters devoted to curses from previous life, previous births. There are many combinations. Like I said, we'll be here for like a whole week if I had to do all the curses, or probably longer. So I'm not going to go into each and every combination. So what I have done is the basic general rules, and from there you'll be able to literally figure out if it is a curse or not. The fundamental rule for a curse you have to remember is affliction by Mars, Saturn, and Rahu. That's the fundamental rule. If it is afflicted in the Lagna and the fifth lord and Jupiter, then for sure it is a curse. Okay. That means it's definitely afflicted. Now, when Sun, Mars, Rahu, and Saturn are posited in the fifth house in strength, while simultaneously the fifth and Jupiter, we did that. So, similarly, if any of these malefics, you need at least two malefics to bring about a curse in the fifth house. Now, it could well be that maybe you have two malefics or three, and maybe by parivartana it has gone somewhere else and something else has come in its place. Then also, the curse is mitigated to an extent. Okay. So it's not panic situation. This is not like a fear mongering thing. Okay. So any questions? I hear somebody asking. Yes. Hi, Margarita. No, no questions?
Hi, Sona. No, I joined later, so I missed the first part. Sorry. So
Oh,
I
no.
have to listen to the recording.
Okay,
Yeah.
no worries. Okay.
Thank you. Thank
Yeah,
you.
you're welcome. Okay.
No,
So,
I'm
yeah.
sorry. I have a question about that Shani in the fifth house. Somewhere I have read that if there is Shani in the fifth house, it means that a person is going to have a son. Just it was, I don't know. I read it somewhere in the internet, and what is your opinion about that?
Well, can I tell you something, Osana?
Yes, yes, carry.
I have Saturn in the fifth,
Yeah,
and
me
I have a
too.
sun, and
Me
I have a
too.
sun.
Okay, great. Thank you very
Me
much.
too. Oksana, I also have Shani in the fifth house. Okay. And I have a son. Okay. So,
Okay,
so
thank
don't,
you.
please
Mhm.
don't, don't, internet is not Jyotish. Internet.
Yes, I know. Yeah, that's why I say that I read it somewhere on the internet. That's why I'm asking you about it.
No, 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 no. You have to analyze things in a
Yeah,
very,
yeah. Right.
or yeah, you can't, you need to know what Shani is ruling, this is one thing, like I said, I keep telling you, one thing will not make up a curse.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, of course. Yes. Thank you.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay. Um, so now Jupiter is included here as it is a karaka for children and the fifth. He then takes a planet in the house associated with a particular curse. So the examination of Pitra Shap would entail not only the condition of the fifth house and its lord Jupiter, and also the sun and the ninth lord and its lord. So basically, he's talking of the father's curse, which is Pitra Shap. And here he's talking about not just Jupiter affliction to the fifth, but also the sun and the fifth house and its lord. So that also will need to be involved in some way, shape, or form to for it to qualify as, from a past lifetime, father's curse. Similarly, curse of the spouse, the seventh house, seventh lord, and Karaka Venus have to be examined, and so on. So I've put up a table here. If you see, the sun is Pitrashap, which is the father. Sarpa Shap. Sarpa is nothing but the serpents, and which is to do with Rahu. So Rahu in the fifth house with a malefic, aspect of a malefic, will make sure that you have some kind of Sarpa Shap coming from a past lifetime. Now, it could well be that you may yourself, if it is in combination with like a Sarpa dosha or Kal Sarpa dosha or Kala Amrita dosha, then also, it is still end of the day a Sarpa Shapa. And so you have to analyze what needs to be done. But of course, the remedies are there. So don't panic. Things like, homams, pujas, and like donation of, making like, for example, making a donation of a gold, and serpents thing, and little models and things like that. Oh, these are some of the broader remedies, but they are very, very effective. If there is no mitigating circumstances in terms of like by parivartana or some such thing, then it is well worth to pursue some of these remedies because they really do help. you know Now, Pitra Shap is the sun, which is the ninth lord, and ninth house is involved, so any of these can be involved. So the ninth lord may have gone in the eighth house, or the Dushtana, that is the sixth, eighth, 12th, then also it's a problem, or in Maranasthana, then it's a problem. It's a malefic, it's a problem. So again, many combinations exist. Similarly, Matra Shap, which is the mother's, to do with the moon, needs to be afflicted. Or the fourth lord and the fourth house needs to be afflicted. All of that will happen. The Bhatri Shap is to do with the brother, which is Mars. So the third house affliction, or the third lord itself, hounded by malefics, that is also possible. Then the Matule Shap is Mercury, that is the curse coming from the uncle, which is the sixth house and the sixth lord. And similarly, Venus is a curse of the spouse, Patni Shap, which is the seventh house and the seventh lord. And Brahman Shap, that is, wrecked some kind of idols in a temple, some past lifetime, or in a church, or you've kind of destroyed or made priest really unhappy. Then it is a Brahman Shap, that is a curse coming from Brahman, which is an afflicted Jupiter with Rahu, will qualify absolutely. And if it is involved with the ninth lord or the ninth house, 100%, then it is definitely a Brahman Shap. Okay. So curses are given by Parashara depict the complete annihilation of a house and its signification. So that house will get really afflicted. It will get really, at some point, something will get destroyed, which is shown by the signification of that house, or the karaka of that house, whatever is involved. The destruction of a house is done by the association of malefics, specifically Mars, Shani, Rahu, by their conjunction and aspect on the house, its lord and its karaka. It is also done by the placement of the karaka and the lord in dushtanas and their association with dushtana lords, particularly the 8th, 12th houses and their lords. So if any of these dushtana lords are involved with Mars, Saturn, Rahu, and the karaka also has got involved, 100 it's a curse. Now you have to remember one thing. The thing is, he's taking predominantly Mars, Saturn, and Rahu. I would even go a little like, for example, I would even take to an extent Moon, sorry, Ketu. Ketu also, like if you have Ketu with Moon, it's a problem. Okay, it's an affliction. So similarly, in terms of like if the fifth lord is with at least with one Agni, please remember this is important. One Agni graha, there is one graha, for example, let's say Sun or Mars or Ketu. If any of these three in combination with one Vayu Tattva planet, that is air element planet, which is Shani or Rahu. So you have like two groups, Agni group, Sun, Mars, Ketu, and you have the Vayu group, which is the air group, which is Saturn and Rahu. If you have any of these two in conjunction, and if they're afflicting any of the inner planets by conjunction or aspect, then you have what is known as the a classic curse, or rather the um, afflicted house or that particular planet where it is sitting in. Is that clear?
Yes, one of my students has got that conjunction. Yes.
What conjunction is that?
If I remember correctly, in the fifth house, he has got Rahu and Sun, and in the 11th house, Ketu and Moon.
Yes, absolutely. That is a problem.
Yeah,
Yes, that's tough. That's tough. A lot of estrangement from his father. Yeah.
yes. His father does not live with them, and a lot of conflicts,
Yeah,
mother, father, relatives, and so on.
absolutely. And you see, that is also that means he was born around an eclipse.
Yes, but it's in his D9, not in his D1, but
Okay.
still it is there. Yeah,
Yeah.
and confused mind as well. I know that by my own experience because I'm his teacher.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Yeah, absolutely. Anyway, thank you for that, Oksana.
Welcome. Welcome.
So now another thing I want to add here is there's a classic yoga called the Yama Yoga. Okay. Did I cover the Yama Yoga? I think I've mentioned it, right? That Yama Yoga happens when it is Mars Graha Drishti as well as Shani Graha Drishti, then it is called the Yama Yoga. This is a very classic, yoga, and this is a definitive affliction. Okay, and so when that happens, then literally that house it is in aspecting. So what I would like all of you to do is one exercise, okay, and please put it up on the Telegram group. Take your chart and see which house is Saturn and Mars by Graha Drishti aspecting, by Graha Drishti. So that house, just put a big cross on it and then let me know, and put up the chart and put a cross there and let me know. Okay, and then we can discuss, because that house is going to be completely lit up, and at some point it will go through massive transformations. Okay, because it is a Yama, it's the death causing yoga, but death can be on many levels. Is everybody okay with that? Yeah.
Yes, sure.
Yes.
Okay. So, hang on. Yeah, okay. So here we see Picasso's chart. First, let's see his chart, then we come to his children. Okay. So if you see his chart, it's Cancer Lagna and a debilitated sun. Now, already there is a problem because we consider a debilitated sun zero digbal. Can everybody see the zero digbal debilitated sun? Absolutely, it will behave as a malefic. Okay, and it is opposite shani, so that is another problem there, so it's absolutely affected. And shani is also in debility. Oh crikey. So shani is also in debility. Okay, now if you see his fifth house, can everybody see the fifth house? Yeah.
Yes.
So if you see the fifth house, moon is in debility. And remember, one of the things we did, that it was a problem, right? A debilitated moon, is definitely a big problem. But the moon is also in debility in Navam's chart. So even though the moon is Vargottama, but it is in debility. So you see, it's a problem moon. But you see, he still had children, but very problematic children, and very treacherous relationships. They were like four children by three different women. And the first child, Paolo, here, I think he's here, Paolo Picasso, and he was probably the only legitimate child of the late artist Pablo, and he died. Uh, Paulo and Pablo. Oh, it's a tongue twister here going on. Okay, and Pablo Picasso died today at the Cochin Hospital. This is in the New York Times. I did a little cut and paste from there. So in 1973, estranged from Paulo, young Pablo took a dose of poison at the age of 24, reportedly in despair over being barred from his grandfather's funeral. So basically, his son, as you can see, I think it's one of his sons, Paolo, who died anyway, eventually after a long illness at the age of 54. But in 73, 20 years before that, he did take some kind of poison, you see, just to get, to get attention and to sort of, because he wanted to attend his grandfather's funeral. But they had a very difficult relationship. I mean, there was jealousy and all kinds of, trying to please the father. As you can see, Paulo is one of the sons. Then it is Maya, then Cloud, and then Paloma. So literally only two sons, and one, I think, and he's the only legitimate son. So he is the only son acknowledged by through Olga, his wife. Rest of them, none of them have been acknowledged, and they were all from his mistresses. So you can see how terrible this is, because it's like an affliction. And all these women had real anecdotes to share with him, or share too about their children, about the family life. It was not very easy at all. And if you look at his Rahu is debilitated in the fifth house. But the fact is, he should have had no sons at all. But obviously he did have sons who died early, who suffered quite a lot, and only one acknowledged son. So tell me, what happened? What brought about the change? Because it is absolutely, the moon is in curse, the moon is in debility, it is in curse, it's in, has a, you know Rashi Drishti from Saturn, and definitely Ketu Grah Drishti, and it is with Rahu. So what went wrong here? Anybody?
Does it have something to do with his 12th house and Mars?
Yes, absolutely. That 12th house is definitely also a problem, but there is a parivartana, if you see.
Yes, right.
right?
Mercury is in the 6th and Mars is in the 12th and it is in Gemini. So
Yes, absolutely. So you see, and there is also another parivartana. It's forcing moon with Ketu. You see, the moon is if you take the other lord of
mm,
Ketu, sorry, of Taurus, then it is moon Ketu also in parivartana. You see, so there is also that happening. You see that?
yes.
So you see there is, but then you have then lot of malefics happening now. Like I said, it is a very, you have to be very careful. First off, Mars is his atmakaraka, so it is very atmakaraka. You can't shift around as and when the parivartana happens. It's very, very tricky, so you have to really proceed with caution about before declaring. If Pablo came to you and said, "Hey, will I have children at all?" If you saw this chart, you'll say, "Forget it. He's never going to have any kids." But you can't pronounce that because there is a parivartana, and Atmakaraka has got involved. That means, will his Atma, will his at a soul level, the soul had to work out something very important regards relationships and children. You see that?
And besides, as you say, the 11th house is the house where we get beaten, and the lord of that house is Venus. So his personal life was quite complicated too due to this factor.
Absolutely. Very, very complicated. And I mean, he was very, very well known as somebody who would just, go with lots of women and things like that. So it would not have been, they had many mental illness. I mean, Paolo had mental illness, all of them were quite afflicted. So you see, it is not easy. And the children will, because of this, all this malefic drishti, the children will bear the burden of his actions and his afflictions in his fifth house. You cannot, they would have been absolutely miserable, and drugs and you name it, and they would have all done it. So then it begets the question, what is the point of all this? But of course, he was a great artist, Pablo. I mean, look at the fifth house. Another signification of the fifth house is also very strong creativity, very strong. And it is on an atma level, that is, it is on a soul level, because Mars rules his fifth house of creativity. So that is absolutely fantastic. And Mars also rules his 10th house. That is so on a soul level, he wanted all this. He wanted this turbulence and this real conflicts and this mess, because his soul chose to go through this suffering and journey. And of course the children had to bear the brunt of it, of course, indeed. But that is how it works. Any affliction to the fifth house, the fifth lord, it will come up like that. And remember what I told you about the Rashi Drishti, okay? Can anybody tell me where that Yama Yoga is happening for him? Remember what I said? Take your chart, figure out where the Mars aspect is, Graha Drishti, where is Shani's Graha Drishti, and cross that house. So, can someone tell me where his is happening? Which houses are Mars and Shani afflicting by Graha Drishti?
Seventh house.
Yes.
12th house by Shani.
Uh-huh. Yes.
And what is the 10? And also 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. What is the 10th house from Shani? Is 1,
Absolutely.
4,
10.
5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. So the 7th house.
Yes.
7 and 12 house by Shani.
Yep.
And then where is Mars? Mars is about with 1, 2, 3, 4. So the third house as well. The third house by Mars.
Yeah, but Shani is not aspecting by Graha Drishti the
No,
this house,
no,
the third
no, only
house.
Mars. Only Mars.
So only, so basically the 12th house is afflicted. Remember one of the things about the 12th house. 12th house is the house of bed pleasures. Okay. One of the
Mm.
significations is bed pleasures. And we all know that he had a very, very weird, like freaky kind of personal, intimate life, and we already know that he had, and these three women who were his mistresses, and yet he continued being married to, I think, Olga, one of them. I think it was the first one. I'm not sure, but I think it was Olga. And only because there was a lot of issues to do with finances and things like that, he didn't want to divide up the monies and all that. And of course, Paolo, who was a legitimate son, never ever got his inheritance, which was really due to him, for his mother, so it was never passed on to him. And of course, he died early at the age of 54. So again, that is also, you have to factor all that in. And so these are not the only women he would have been with. There would have been many, many, many women. So you see that 12th house is a massive problem. It's a huge affliction, the 12th house. And then we come to the 7th house. Oh, lo and behold, it's again a house of relationships. So one is bed pleasures and the other one is a house of relationships. So basically, no wonder his intimate life was a complete mess, you know. Now, if,
Sonal,
yeah,
I have
go
a
on.
question regarding the Upachaya Drishti of Saturn. So
Yeah,
basically, regarding the different aspect of the third house Drishti and the Drishti and the 10th house Drishti. So the 10th house is more like the third one we know is also the effort. So it's a hard work. So there is any difference, like conceptually, between the third Drishti and the 10th Drishti of Saturn? Because also I learned then the Drishti of Saturn are also related to sexuality. The third Drishti is related to sexuality.
yeah,
So I don't know.
of course, because the third house, if you see from the Gagan Lagna, that is from, if you see, analyze the chart from the 10th house, okay? Just
Yeah,
you analyze the house from the chart from the 10th house, which is called the Gagan Lagna, which is called, the Gagan is the heavens, the big sky. So it is called the sky Lagna because it's one of the highest Kendra houses. And that is one of the rules you need to remember. You always analyze the whole chart from 7th house, the 10th house, the 4th house, and see how the layout of the planets is happening. So if you analyze that, then you see Saturn's drishti comes to the 12th house, that which is
exactly.
nothing but the third house, which is nothing but the Mithuna Bhava. Mithuna Bhava, in literally Mithuna, is actually the Maithuna Bhava. Maithuna means copulation. In Sanskrit, we've already learned that comes under like Gemini, that it's got a flavor of Gemini, and it has a very fighting, strong, desirous nature. It will stop at no end to meet its desires. But of course, Shani is a Karaka. It's our karmic our karmic lord. So then wherever his drishti goes, he's going to bring that kind of karma on the surface and say, deal with it. So now if somebody who was very spiritual would have been in Pablo's place, he would have learned meditation or done loads of sort of had a sadhana or a spiritual practice, and been or joined for a time being, like joined like a little ashrams and had a guru. That also, then the guru would have taken the brunt of that Saturn Maithuna drishti onto the third house drishti on the 12th house affliction, you see. So you have to analyze, but he wasn't. Instead, it played out on his bed pleasures, in terms of his where he was seeking, what he was seeking. And so he's landed up accruing more karma. But that is not to say that, he wasn't a great artist. He indeed was. He could have just got drunk every night and done drugs and everything and just whiled away all his time. But he didn't choose to do that because it's atmakaraka involved. On the atma level, he has to do something. It's lording very beneficial, the fifth house and the 10th house. And remember, Mars is a great Raj Yoga Karaka for Cancer Lagna. Superb. Mars is very beneficial. So you see, even though the Shani's Drishti is, of course, indeed Maithuna Drishti, which is like the third, of copulation and of desire and things like that. But yet, and in because of that, it gets, what's the word, afflicted the 12th house. But yet, he managed to sort of get the work going, because from the Gagan Lagna, Saturn also aspects the 7th house, which is its own house, you see. So that is a little bit of a silver lining to the Saturn in Aries, because it lands up aspecting its own sign, which is very positive, you see. Does that make sense to you?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. So that is why, Shani, you have to analyze the 10th house, and if Shani is there, the third house is the drishti of Shani's third house. Drishti is, of course, going to be little bit more full of desires, full of, um kind of bad habits, and kind of a little bit of debauchery and little bit of all of that, compared to the 10th house drishti, where the 10th house drishti will say, hey, there is work to do, let's get going. And because Shani is in the 10th house, and from and it's aspecting the 10th house itself, its own house, which is the 7th, it said, hey Pablo, come on, you've got to create something, you can't just sit there. And Shani is amatya karaka. If you notice, Shani is AM, Amatya Karaka. Can everybody see that?
Yes.
Yeah. So that is very fortunate. Shani being the Amatya Karaka in the 10th house, But of course, malefics are not welcome in that house. It's best not to. But if you have to have malefics, then Shani is not bad. But of course, it will give, and because it's retrograde, it will probably give results of an exalted Shani in the its opposite sign, as if Shani is in Libra. Yeah. Does that make it clear? Okay. So
Mhm.
let's move on to so
Excuse me.
everybody got
Hello.
that. Yeah, yes. Hi.
Can I ask a question, ma'am?
Yes. Who's this?
Here, the seventh house, not only the Shani and the Mars, ma'am, even the Jupiter also expecting, no? Is there any radius?
Well, yeah, of course. The Jupiter's Graha Drishti is fantastic. That is why he had, kind of, he managed to robe in all these women and all his mistresses, and even they were fighting and they were unhappy, but it kind of assuaged the situation. And he still managed to get work done and have a family and have some kind of relationships, and his first wife still stuck around. She could have
Okay.
easily walked out, but it's that Jupiter that saved the day, really. Indeed. So that is what you need to look for. Whenever there is a curse, like the seventh house is cursed, whenever, or rather, there is a Yama Yoga aspect happening in the seventh house. So that's a cross. The 12th house is a cross, but Jupiter's drishti on the seventh house is very desirable. That makes it a little bit more bearable, but that's not going to completely take everything away, the curse away. There will still be problems. The problem is in this fifth
Yep.
house. Yeah. Yeah,
Thank
go
you.
on. Yeah, Margarita, anyone?
I'm okay.
Okay. Now we come to John Travolta. Anybody heard of him?
Yes, of course.
Yes. Now he's an actor. His wife died, I think, 2 years ago or 1 year ago, and from breast cancer. And they were on holiday, and their children. He already lost a son, Brett or something. His name was, or Jet. Sorry. So you see, again, we see another Cancer Lagna with Mars in its own sign, which is very positive, right? Right?
Mm.
But if you see the other lord, if you see Jupiter, one lord of the ninth house is very well placed, but the other lord is gone. It's in the 12th house. That's number one. And not just that, if you see the uh, the seventh lord is in the fourth house. You can see that, but it's retrograde, and so it's going to give you results of a very debilitated Saturn. So that's a big problem. Yeah. Can everybody see that?
Yes, yes, we can.
Okay. Now, on the surface, it looks like, oh, Mars in its own sign. What's the problem? And Mars is a yoga karaka. So what's the there's no problem. Well, yeah, that's why he had all these, lovely family and all. But two of them, his wife disappeared, and so did his one of his sons, Jet, disappear. And so the thing is, analyze where Mars is. Look what's flanking Mars. What's on the look at the eighth house, and tell me where the drishti of that Shani is going. Anybody?
So Saturn is aspecting how?
No, I didn't
Rem-
say
oh,
about Saturn aspect. This is an example of not a Saturn aspect. This is an
Okay.
example of see the house Shani and Rahu, a debilitated Rahu is sandwiched between the fifth house.
Okay.
Fifth house has got Papa Kartari
mm,
by Shani and
yeah,
Rahu. Do you see? It's a
yeah.
big problem.
And also Saturn is expecting the Lagna.
Absolutely. That is also a big
Mm,
problem, right?
mm,
And
Could.
and there are many things. And the Karaka of the seventh house has gone into the eighth house. So you see, even though this is a classic example, seventh lord
Oh,
exalted, okay, but it's retrograde. And it's so you have to make, so the trouble with any planet being retrograde, okay, is that you will keep trying, okay, and it will give you the results of the opposite house. That's the problem with it. So not only is Shani retrograde, so on the surface it looks like, wow, he's got a fantastic wife, it's she's like steady and very rock solid and very exalted ideals about her, indeed, and she was all of that, but it's retrograde. So at some point Shani is all about disease. At some point it will rear its head and give the results of the opposite sign. So it kind of took her away last year, and she was quite young. She was like 52 or something. And so or even younger, I don't know, but basically, so Shani, the seventh is a problem, the seventh lord. Plus, if you see, there is also another Papa Kartari, you see, on the seventh house, and that's a problem. Sun, we take the sun in the eighth house as a krura graha, that is a cruel one, and you would take it as a malefic. So there is literally two pap kartaris, 1 and 2 on the fifth house and on the seventh house with Rahu and Shani. Rahu and Sun. Can you see that?
mm,
Yeah.
mm.
So you see, that is, and Saturn has got involved because the seventh lord, as a seventh lord, it Saturn also rules the eighth house, and it has come in the fourth house, you see. So it will bring along with it its flavor, and a flavor of the eighth house along with the seventh house, which is a wife, plus the karaka. Never forget the karaka. See the karaka. So the karaka of the seventh house is very badly placed. It's in the eighth house. Now, is it combust? Yes, it is combust. Its sun is 6 degrees, Venus is 11 degrees. That's a definite combustion. So not only is a karaka gone in the eighth house, which is a big problem, it's also in combustion. So the karakas also got messed up. Plus, please see the obvious. You have to also see Shani is in Libra. Who's ruling Libra?
Venus.
Yes, and that's combusted. It is in conjunction, by being in conjunction with the sun very close, and it is in the eighth house. And anyway, men with Venus in the eighth, they are quite detached. It's called the yogi plan. What's the yogi Shukra? That means it's Shukra is like, it's like Venus, which is sort of like a quite a detached Venus. Men who have that is tend to be a little bit detached. They don't really care too much because they have spent many lifetimes being like very austere measures. So they don't mind, if the wife is there or not there. So on the surface, it's a beautiful, happy family, gorgeous children and everything, but there were so many problems, you see. Do you see that? So you have to look very closely. You cannot make an assessment. Wow, Mars in its own sign, it's fantastic. No, see how where the karaka is placed. Jupiter is okay placed. Jupiter is not a problem, but that Jupiter still didn't manage to save the relationship, because by death, because look at Saturn. Saturn, and the dispositor of Saturn, the karaka itself has gone into the eighth house, which is Venus. So the relationship, we know, is going to be a big problem, you see.
Yeah, I know one person actually. He is one of my friends. So his Venus is in the eighth house, and that is 100% what you have just said. So he can't maintain any relationship in his life, and he hasn't had any women for, I think, at least 7 years or something like that now.
Yeah,
He
so-
can't have it, and actually it seems to me that he's not interested really.
yeah, absolutely, because he's a bit of a yogi. Not a bit, but quite a bit of a yogi, so that is a yogi Venus, yogi Shukra. It's a brahmachari Shukra. He's not interested. On a deep level, there's a sense of like, I don't want to do this. I want to take the sannyas and just sit in a, and do something else. I'm not interested in this whole family thing. Plus, John Travolta's chart, there is another big problem. Ketu in the eighth house, Ketu in the 12th house. Ketu in the 12th house has got a very, very bad rep. Any malefics in the 12th house is a huge problem. Yeah.
Yes, my partner has got that.
Yeah, but see, there is a caveat to it. Okay. A, it is debilitated. B, there is no Rashi Drishti of any of the benefics. If you see, is there a look for benefic Drishti? Is there any benefic Drishti? Any
It's not.
benefic is aspecting that Ketu, the
No,
12th
no.
house?
Nothing.
Exactly. So we are in trouble then instantly there. For anyone, this is whether a man or a woman, ideally you want, and Ketu is not a Lagna Lord. If it was a Lagna Lord, it would have been a little bit better, but it's not even a Lagna Lord. So then we have more problems unfolding, you see. So you have to really analyze the malefics very carefully. And then Rahu is also giving a Graha Drishti to the seventh house, and the Karaka is gone. So, what I'm trying to say is that, this wouldn't have been a problem for, because actually it has a very nice Drishti from Jupiter. So, that's not a problem. Okay. So even though Saturn, okay, we can live with Saturn behaving as if it's debilitated. We Rahu's Graha Drishti we can live with, all that we could have lived with. But the Karaka itself of the seventh house has landed into a lot of trouble. That's number one. There is no benefic drishti from, even if it's say, okay, let's say Venus is in trines to that house, but it's not a Rashi drishti, number one. B, you know, even though any malefic, you have to see if it is a Lagna Lord. If it is not a Lagna Lord, then it's like worse. So Ketu as a malefic in the 12th house is a it's a big problem in relationship. No relationship will really last for him in combination with the Yogi Venus. Is everybody clear on this? Yeah. So you see, it's quite a heavy chart, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
Sonal, can I ask a question?
Yes, go on.
Thank you. So each time that Ketu is in the 12th house, there is always that problem that relationships won't last?
Yes,
Oh,
by and
okay.
large, but you need to figure out if there is a benefic drishti over that Ketu. You need
Okay.
something, you need some kind of,
Okay.
lighting up, or some kind of, you also have to figure out what Ketu is doing. You see, there is another of the fifth lord you have to analyze. Here, the fifth lord is a problem, even though there is a dictum, right? Remember what I said. If Mars is in its own sign, it's not going to give results because it is at Tattva level. Do never forget that, okay?
Okay.
So on the surface, that Mars in Scorpio, wow, own sign, fantastic. But yeah, it's not going to give you any good results though, because it's on another level. It's with Lord Shiva. He's not going to listen. He's meditating. You're not going to get the benefits of that. So who's going to give you the benefit? The results, the other Lord, because there is
Saturn.
still
Oh,
one more Lord, right? Yes, it would have been Saturn if it was Aries. Let's say Mars was in Aries, then it would have given by Saturn the exaltation Lord, okay? But you see, Mars is in Scorpio, so we have to take the other Lord. But the other Lord is in a very bad, it's debilitated, it's very badly placed in the 12th house. Ketu in the 12th is not a good thing at all, because it is probably worse than even Shani in the 12th, or Mars in the 12th, or Surya in the 12th. Much worse. Out of all the 3 4 malefics, you don't want Ketu in the 12th, and especially if it is debilitated. But you also have to see that sometimes Ketu in the 12th, these people will be brilliant if it is not debilitated. And if it is having some kind of a good drishti, then maybe the person will be brilliant at meditation, it'll be superb. So if they pursue that part of their life, then, yes, they will do very well. So they can continue to work, but they can continue to, meditate or have a very strong sadhana. Then, of course, things will start to help. The Rishi will help. Narad Muni will help a lot. Mantras for Naradai and all of that will help a lot. Is everybody getting this?
It's
yes.
quite nice because there is always hope, even when there
Of
is
course.
always hope. Yeah.
But there is hope, because remember
Yeah.
that what Parvati is asking Lord Shiva. So what is the way out of all our misery and
Exactly.
affliction? You know, we can't just sit there saying, okay, that is our curse. And now what do? We can do nothing.
Exactly.
Shall we
Yeah,
just
yeah.
go to the pub and just sit and drink then all day long, you know?
Exactly.
You know, but even there you won't be allowed without a
Exactly.
passport.
Yes, even worse.
Yeah, exactly.
We
So
cannot even do this anymore.
exactly. So you see, there has to be a way out, but you have to understand first, you have to identify the problem areas, because remember, people will only come when they feel nothing is working for them, or something important that they want is not working for them. You know, that's when they
Mm,
will come, where they are
mm, mm.
really in deep pain. Because, you know,
Yeah.
people will come when they are suffering and in pain. And so you have to first identify what the pain is and what is the root cause of that pain. And
Mm,
once you're able to identify the root cause, then you can go about at some remedies and mantras, and mantra shastra will come in, and other remedial measures can be adopted. But the first step has to begin with, wow, why is that person suffering so much?
yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, what is the karma? What heavy karma has he been born to tackle? You know, that is our first and foremost question. Yeah. Okay, so we will end. Let me see if I have one more chart, or I may have one more chart. Oh, yes, I've got Alan Turing's chart. Fantastic. Does everybody know about Alan Turing?
No, I don't. Who was
Oh,
that?
okay. Is anybody else who doesn't know about Alan Turing?
No.
Yeah, me, I don't.
Well, Alan Turing was instrumental in decoding and setting up like a whole system of decoding computer codes, and you know, those kind of you know, sort of by Nazi Germany, and tapping into those codes, you know, and he set up a system which led to the modern day computers. So all of that was was thanks to Alan Turing. And there's a big, huge museum by Gloucestershire, um, of his Alan Turing's, and all the secret work and secret codes and the machines they created in order to read the codes sent by eavesdropping on Nazi Germany during the World War II. Yeah, so I would encourage you to Google him. Now, he only after his death, because he was extremely brilliant mind, absolutely great mind, but he was gay, and that was a big problem to the British monarchy at the time, and the politicians, and it was a big problem. And he could never really come out openly as gay, and so it was so bad, his suffering, that and his you know, turmoil, to come out openly, and they wanted to hush it, including the royalty, that they actually gave him electric shocks and what not to his, you know, I mean, they really made him suffer. So you see, can everybody see his chart?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it is Taurus Lagna with Shani in Lagna. Remember what Parashara says, any malefic in Lagna will be a problem. Now, instantly, we see where is the Yama Yoga happening. If you see, Shani has a drishti on the third house. And as you can see, there is a big problem there. It's aspecting Mars, and that is a big problem. On top of that, Mars is debilitated. So you see, that is a problem, right?
Yeah, it
Mm.
And the
is.
third house is your mind. You know, the third house is how you think, you see, and it is your conscious thoughts, subconscious thoughts, which will give rise, all of that will give rise in the third house. So it's a very fierce house, it's a very important house. Any problems in the head, you know, will turn up here, will give birth, the root cause will be found in the third house, you see, and it's a big problem. And if you
So now,
add,
so
yeah,
so Also, the other houses of the mind are also, except the Lagna, also the six as well. Because you said like the third house is the house of the mind. You know, this is the first time that I come across that is a house of the mind. You know, I don't. It's because it's the third house is also courage, bravery, effort. So they are backed up by a strong mind in that sense.
Of course, yes. And we
Yeah.
have done,
Okay.
I have said that it is about the mind and everything. If you go back to some of the previous lectures, I have said that, but it is in the Naisargika, the natural house systems, it is the house of Gemini. And Gemini is, Mercury does rule to a large extent the mind. It's also about our desires. The
Oh
mind,
yes.
the
Yeah.
mind
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, the mind creates
Mm-mm.
desires.
Definitely.
Remember, I mean,
Yes.
where
Definitely.
will desires come from? They will only come from the mind is telling you, hey, I want this, I want that,
Mm,
you know.
mm, mm, mm.
So all
Yeah.
of that is comes into play. So in third house, affliction is a very difficult problem. It's
That
really difficult. And he was
okay.
really afflicted because of what he underwent. They would not accept him, but they still wanted his work. They still valued his work because he did phenomenal work. You know, he was instrumental in decoding all those secret codes by of the Nazi Germany. So then he was like, he was a master at all that. He devised great little machines for that. So he was a bit of a genius there going. But yet, look at his personal life. It was misery, and they made him suffer. And it was only, I think, about like 8 years or 9 years ago, the British government apologized for ongoing, putting him with so much torture. And I think he eventually committed suicide. I'm not sure, but it's all very, very hush hush and very gray area, you see. So this is what he
There's a very good movie about him. I forget the name of it. But,
yeah, it's got my one of my favorite actors. Yeah, you're right. It is a very good film. So you see, it's the third house is a big problem. Now if we analyze, if you, so that way you have to keep analyzing. Now the fifth house, he had obviously no children. So if we analyze Mercury and analyze Rahu, because Mercury is in its own sign and Rahu is in Pisces. So Rahu will be giving the results. So you see, and there is an exchange between Rahu and Ketu. Can you see that?
So now, and can we say that he was somehow abused in his early age or something?
There is a possibility.
Yeah.
There is a early age, yeah, definitely. There's a possibility. But here there is a Brahman Shapa, you see. It's a big problem here. Because of I mean, technically it's not a really kind of what's the word, there's no direct affliction to that Rahu, who's giving the results, but there is another issue, and another one of the shapas is that if you're malefics in any of these three houses, or any of these three houses, or any of these three houses, then it's a problem and it creates to some kind of a curse. So he has Saturn in Lagna and he has Surya in the second house, which is a problem. So even the Surya is Mercury is very, very well placed in its own sign, but it'll never give the results of that. And plus I think Venus is also combusted here. Yes, Venus is 5 and Sun is 8. So again, another case of the classic Venus combustion. So the Karaka of the seventh house is combusted. So you see, he's not a yogi, but he did have quirky relationships, because one of the Lagna lords is Venus, which is combusted. So it's instantly a problem. And plus Venus also rules his sixth house, and also so the sixth lord becomes kind of quite it takes on the fierceness of the sixth lord as well, you see. So you see, there is a big problem with his fifth house is a problem. His second house is a huge problem. The Karaka Venus is afflicted. So those are bit of issues. And the third house has got huge affliction. So perhaps this was like a past life curse of like you know, um, the moon curse, and moon is also the Atma Karaka, you see. So it is something the Atma has been born to do, to go through this suffering. You know, another tip I can give you is very important is analyze where Rahu is in your chart. Whether it is because just Rahu, just by being wherever it is going to give you problems. So, for example, in the signs, if it is in Jupiter's signs, then it is like a sharp, a bit of a curse coming from Brahmins or priests and things like that, or learned people. If it is, let's say, in the sign of sun, you know, in Leo, so it is a curse coming from the father. Also, if you have Rahu's sun and it is in Leo, then it's definitely a curse of the father. If you have, let's say, sun in Rahu in moon sign, and if it is also aspecting by malefic and aspecting the moon, then it is also matula dosha, matri dosha, you know, which is mother's um, curse from a past lifetime. So you see, you have to analyze it um, kind of in a very focused manner. This is kind of a bit of a flavor. Now, this chart may not perfectly fit, but I would encourage you to find me charts which are like, hey, fifth house afflictions and definitive, like just like we saw in case of, you know, John Travolta, and who's the other one we saw? Pablo Picasso, where there was like huge afflictions, you know. But bear in mind, there's parivartana will change, will alleviate the situation. So, you know, it's not completely gone though. It will make it a little bit better. But his misery for the children never went away. So, you know, it's in a way, it's kind of there. Any questions? Anything? Now, one of the remedial measures adopted to obtain protection from evil effects of the yogas is idol of the serpent, Nagaraj, made in gold. And after worshipping it, that is, you have to do a puja of puja, as in like the sermons by a priest. It has to be made in gold. It can be very small, you know, and given in charity, or giving in charity a cow, some land, sesame seeds, gold. Now, all this is kind of has to be done in through the agency of a priest. You cannot do without it, you know. And so, but this is a very, very effective remedy, because this is the Lord of the Serpents is nothing but Rahu. So maybe if he had done that, that would have alleviated the situation. Because Rahu then comes in the comes in the fifth house. And remember what I said, Moon and Ketu is a big affliction, you know. It's a lot of problems with Moon Ketu. Moon Rahu, yes, but not so bad as Moon Ketu. Moon Ketu is a definitely a problem. Yeah.
Sonal, what is the case if, for example, there is Moon and Ketu
Yeah.
in conjunction, but Moon so in Taurus, so Moon is exalted and Ketu is debilitated. So it's still really bad.
Yeah, I mean, even though the moon will be quite strong to take on that curse, you know, the moon will be strong, but Ketu will then start to give much more positive results, and then the moon will give the results of the debilitated Ketu. So it's
Mm.
like passing the baton. If you're walking with, like, let's say you're walking with a really like a rogue, right?
Mm.
And so, and you are like a very exalted and you're like very happy and everything is fine, but you're walking around with a rogue, in the company of a rogue. What's going to happen? He's going to pull you down, and then his status will get elevated. So it's a bit like that. Do you understand?
Yes, I do. Yes,
Yes.
because I saw that also, there is something positive in sense that Moon and Ketu give you intuition, a really great intuition.
Yeah, indeed. And he was very intuitive. He was absolutely
Hmm.
brilliant. There is no doubt about that. He had like a real epiphanies and, sort of like very strong intuitive abilities and very inspired and everything. Of course, because the moon is Atmakaraka, and it is also the lord of his lagna. This is a huge Raj Yoga. You see, if you have a particular Atmakaraka and that planet is also the lord of your lagna, um, then that is a huge Raj Yoga. Okay, that's a very big Raj Yoga. So of course there's no doubt that Raj Yoga did happen. Because he laid the foundation for modern day computer machines and analog computers. So absolutely, there's no doubt about that. But that's not going to take away the suffering that is there, in his mind, in his at the time. So you see, you have to see how the person also is, how happy he is. So yeah, it was great for Ketu, huge intuition, but for his mind, he was miserable. You see that? Any other questions, guys?
No questions. Thank you. I have just found an